The morning sun cast long shadows across Kensington Palace as Kate Middleton stood before the ornate mirror in her dressing room. Today was no ordinary day. It was the day that would forever change the course of British history. The coronation of King Charles III was just hours away, and as the Princess of Wales, she would play a central role in this magnificent ceremony alongside her husband Prince William and their 3 children. Kate's hands trembled slightly as she reached for the delicate diamond, earrings that had belonged to Queen Elizabeth. The weight of tradition and responsibility felt heavier than usual this morning. She could hear the distant sounds of preparation echoing through the palace corridors, staff members rushing about, ensuring every detail was perfect for the royal family's departure to Westminster Abbey. Prince William entered the room, already dressed in his ceremonial uniform adorned with medals and insignia that told the story of his military service and royal duties. His face carried a mixture of solemnity and pride as he approached his wife. They exchanged a knowing glance, understanding without words the magnitude of the day ahead. This coronation would not only crown his father as king, but would also mark their own elevation in the line of succession. The children's voices could be heard from the adjoining room where their nanny was helping them prepare. 10-year-old Prince George, now second in line to the throne, was practicing his ceremonial bow with the seriousness of someone who understood the importance of protocol. 8-year-old Princess Charlotte was admiring her specially designed dress, spinning around to watch the fabric flow gracefully. 5-year-old Prince Louis was characteristically energetic, bouncing on his bed despite repeated gentle reminders about maintaining proper posture for the long ceremony ahead. Kate took a deep breath and smoothed down her elegant royal blue dress, chosen specifically to complement the solemnity of the occasion while reflecting her status as Princess of Wales. The fabric had been carefully selected months in advance, with every detail approved by royal protocol officers. Her hat, adorned with subtle feathers and a small diamond brooch, completed the ensemble that would be photographed and analyzed by millions around the world. William walked to the window and gazed out at the crowds already gathering along the processional route. Even from this distance, he could see the sea of Union Jack flags and the excited faces of people who had traveled from across the Commonwealth to witness this historic moment. The anticipation was palpable, and he could feel the weight of centuries of tradition resting on his shoulders. The palace staff had been preparing for this day for over a year, coordinating every aspect of the royal family's participation in the ceremony. Kate's lady-in-waiting entered with a final checklist, ensuring that all protocols would be followed precisely. The timing of their arrival at Westminster Abbey had been calculated to the minute, taking into account the processional requirements and the need for the family to be seated before the most sacred moments of the ceremony began. As Kate applied her final touches of makeup, she reflected on how different this coronation would be from Queen Elizabeth II's in 1953. The world had changed dramatically, and this ceremony would be broadcast live to billions of viewers across the globe, with social media providing instant commentary on every gesture and expression. The pressure to represent the monarchy with dignity and grace felt immense. The children were finally ready, and they appeared in the doorway looking like something from a fairy tale. George wore a miniature version of his father's ceremonial uniform, complete with white gloves and polished shoes that reflected the morning light. Charlotte's dress was a masterpiece of pale pink silk with delicate embroidery that caught the light with each movement. Louis, despite his young age, looked remarkably composed in his formal attire, though Kate could see the excitement dancing in his eyes. William gathered his family around him for a moment of quiet reflection before they departed. He spoke softly about the significance of the day, explaining to the children how they would be witnessing history and participating in a ceremony that connected them to hundreds of years of British heritage. His voice carried both pride and the weight of responsibility as he prepared them for the grandeur they were about to experience. The final preparations were complete. Kate checked her appearance one last time, ensuring that every detail was perfect. The diamond and sapphire necklace that had been a wedding gift from the Queen caught the light beautifully against her dress. She knew that every aspect of her appearance would be scrutinized and remembered, becoming part of the historical record of this momentous day. Outside, the royal motorcade waited, with security personnel positioned strategically around the palace grounds. The route to Westminster Abbey had been secured for hours, with thousands of police officers and security personnel ensuring the safety of the royal family, and the hundreds of thousands of spectators who would line the streets. The anticipation in the air was electric, and Kate could feel her heart beating faster as they prepared to embark on this journey that would take them into the heart of British constitutional history. The royal motorcade moved through the streets of London with ceremonial precision, flanked by mounted guards whose horses stepped in perfect rhythm. Kate held Prince Louis's small hand as he pressed his face against the window, marveling at the enormous crowds that had gathered along every inch of the route. The cheers and waves from thousands of well-wishers created a wall of sound that penetrated even the reinforced windows of their vehicle. Prince George sat straight and tall, consciously mimicking his father's posture as they waved to the crowds. He had been coached extensively on royal protocol, but nothing could have prepared him for the overwhelming response from the people lining the streets. Princess Charlotte waved enthusiastically, her natural charm evident even through the car window as she smiled at the children who had been lifted onto their parents' shoulders for a better view. William pointed out landmarks to his children as they passed, explaining the historical significance of each building and monument they encountered. His voice remained calm and educational, but Kate could see the emotion in his eyes as he watched his father's subjects celebrating this momentous transition of power. The sight of 3 generations of the royal family together in one vehicle created a powerful symbol of continuity and stability. As they approached Westminster Abbey, the crowds grew even denser, with people packed shoulder to shoulder behind the security barriers. The ancient Gothic spires of the Abbey rose majestically against the London sky, their weathered stones having witnessed countless royal ceremonies over nearly 1,000 years. Television crews from around the world had positioned themselves at strategic points, their cameras capturing every angle of the royal family's arrival. The motorcade slowed as they entered the Abbey grounds, where hundreds of dignitaries, heads of state, and members of the aristocracy had already gathered. Kate could see familiar faces among the crowd, foreign royals, prime ministers, and celebrities who had been invited to witness this historic ceremony. The diversity of the gathering reflected the modern Commonwealth and Britain's place in the contemporary world. Prince Louis began to fidget as the excitement built, and Kate quietly distracted him by pointing out the colorful uniforms of the ceremonial guards and the beautiful horses that would be part of the procession. She had learned from experience that keeping the children engaged and interested was crucial to ensuring their good behavior during long formal events. The car came to a stop at the Abbey's entrance, where red carpet stretched up the ancient stone steps. Archbishop of Canterbury and other senior clergy waited in their elaborate vestments, ready to welcome the royal family into the sacred space where kings and queens had been crowned for generations. The moment had arrived for them to step out into history. William emerged first, his military uniform gleaming in the filtered sunlight that broke through the London clouds. He turned to help Kate from the vehicle, and she gracefully stepped onto the red carpet, her royal blue dress flowing elegantly as cameras captured every moment. The children followed, each maintaining the composure they had been taught, while still displaying the natural wonder appropriate to their ages. The crowd's cheers reached a crescendo as the family appeared together on the Abbey steps. Kate took Princess Charlotte's hand while William guided Prince George, with little Prince Louis between his parents, looking up in awe at the massive Gothic architecture towering above them. The family paused for a moment at the entrance, allowing photographers to capture this historic image that would be preserved for future generations. Inside the Abbey, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. 2,000 guests filled the ancient pews, their formal attire creating a kaleidoscope of colors against the stone walls and stained glass windows. The organ's majestic tones resonated through the vast space, adding to the solemnity and grandeur of the occasion. Kate could feel the weight of history pressing down upon them as they prepared to take their designated seats. The family was escorted to their prominent position near the altar, where they would have an unobstructed view of the coronation ceremony. Kate helped the children settle into their seats, quietly reminding them of the behavior expected during the long service ahead. She could see other members of the royal family already seated nearby, each dressed in their finest formal attire and displaying the dignity required for such a momentous occasion. As they waited for the ceremony to begin, Kate looked around at the magnificent interior of Westminster Abbey. The soaring arches, intricate stone carvings, and brilliant stained glass windows created an atmosphere of reverence and majesty that seemed perfect for crowning a monarch. She thought about all the previous coronations that had taken place in this very spot, connecting the present moment to centuries of British history. The children sat quietly, occasionally whispering questions to their parents about the ceremony they were about to witness. Prince George, as the future heir, paid particular attention to every detail, understanding that he was observing traditions he would one day participate in as the central figure. Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis were simply amazed by the grandeur surrounding them, their eyes wide with wonder at the pageantry about to unfold. The final preparations were being made as distinguished guests continued to file into the Abbey. Kate could see television cameras positioned strategically throughout the space, ready to broadcast every moment to the estimated 2 billion viewers watching around the world. The responsibility of representing the monarchy with grace and dignity during this globally observed event felt overwhelming yet thrilling. William reached over and gently squeezed Kate's hand as the moment approached for the ceremony to begin. They shared a look of mutual support and understanding, knowing that they were about to witness and participate in one of the most significant constitutional moments in British history. The coronation of King Charles III would mark not just a new reign, but a new chapter in their own lives as the Prince and Princess of Wales. The ancient bells of Westminster Abbey began to toll, their deep, resonant chimes echoing across London and signaling the beginning of the coronation ceremony. Kate felt a shiver of anticipation run down her spine as the magnificent organ thundered to life, filling the sacred space with music that had accompanied royal ceremonies for centuries. The moment they had all been preparing for was finally beginning. King Charles III appeared at the Abbey's entrance, resplendent in his ceremonial robes of crimson velvet trimmed with ermine. The St. Edward's crown, which would soon rest upon his head, was carried on a velvet cushion by one of the ceremonial attendants. Kate watched as her father-in-law processed slowly down the aisle, his face a mask of solemnity and concentration as he approached the altar, where he would be transformed from prince to king. Prince Louis pressed closer to his mother as the pageantry unfolded around them, overwhelmed by the grandeur of the procession. Kate whispered gentle reassurances to him while keeping her eyes fixed on the ceremony, knowing that this moment would be forever etched in their family's history. The weight of tradition seemed to fill the very air they breathed, connecting them to centuries of monarchs who had undergone the same sacred transformation. The Archbishop of Canterbury began the ancient liturgy, his voice carrying clearly through the Abbey's acoustics as he addressed both the king and the assembled congregation. Every word had been carefully preserved and passed down through generations, creating an unbroken link to the coronations of medieval kings and queens. Kate marveled at the continuity of these traditions, even as the modern world watched through television cameras and social media streams. Princess Charlotte sat perfectly still, her young mind trying to comprehend the significance of what she was witnessing. She had been told that her grandfather was becoming king, but seeing the elaborate ceremony unfold before her eyes gave new meaning to the concept of monarchy. The jeweled regalia, ceremonial swords, and golden orbs seemed like something from the fairy tales she loved. Yet here they were being used in a real ceremony that would shape her family's future. The moment arrived for the anointing, the most sacred part of the coronation ceremony. Kate watched as King Charles removed his ceremonial robes and approached the ancient coronation chair, where monarch after monarch had been crowned since the 14th century. The holy oil, blessed according to traditions dating back over 1,000 years, was carefully applied to the king's hands, breast, and head by the Archbishop. Prince George leaned forward in his seat, instinctively understanding that he was witnessing something of profound importance to his own destiny. A second in line to the throne, he knew that he would one day sit in that same chair and undergo this same sacred ceremony. The weight of future responsibility settled on his young shoulders as he watched his grandfather participate in rituals that connected the monarchy to divine authority. The crowning moment arrived with breathtaking solemnity. The Archbishop lifted St. Edward's crown high above King Charles's head, pausing for a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity. Kate held her breath, knowing that when the crown touched her father-in-law's head, everything would change. The assembled congregation watched in absolute silence as the crown was carefully placed, transforming Prince Charles into King Charles III in the eyes of God and the British people. The moment the crown settled on the king's head, a thunderous cry of "God save the King" erupted from the congregation, echoing through Westminster Abbey and spilling out into the streets where thousands more voices joined the ancient acclamation. Kate felt tears spring to her eyes as she watched William stand and call out with the rest, his voice strong and clear as he proclaimed his father's new status as sovereign. Prince Louis clapped his hands in delight at the sudden eruption of sound, not fully understanding the constitutional significance, but caught up in the excitement of the moment. Kate smiled at his innocent joy while simultaneously feeling the profound shift that had just occurred in their family hierarchy. William was now the direct heir to the throne, and their children had moved one step closer to their eventual roles in the monarchy. The ceremony continued with the presentation of the royal regalia, the orb, scepter, and ring that symbolized the monarch's temporal and spiritual authority. Each item was blessed and handed to the new king with words that had been spoken at coronations for centuries. Kate watched as her father-in-law accepted each symbol of his new role, his face reflecting both the honor and burden of kingship. The queen consort, Camilla, approached the altar for her own ceremony, where she would be crowned as queen. Kate observed the proceedings with particular interest, knowing that she too would one day undergo a similar ceremony when William ascended to the throne. The thought both thrilled and daunted her as she contemplated the responsibilities that lay ahead for their family. The children remained remarkably well-behaved throughout the long ceremony, occasionally whispering questions to their parents but generally maintaining the composure expected of young royals. Kate was proud of how they handled themselves in such a formal and significant setting, understanding that their behavior was being observed and would be remembered as part of the historical record of this day. As the ceremony reached its crescendo, with the newly crowned King Charles III receiving the homage of the assembled peers and prelates, Kate reflected on how this moment would forever change their family dynamics. The casual grandfather figure who played with their children would now carry the full weight of constitutional monarchy, while William stepped into his new role as heir apparent with all the responsibilities that entailed. The magnificent ceremony was drawing toward its conclusion, but Kate knew that the implications of what they had witnessed would resonate through their lives for decades to come. The coronation had not just created a new king, it had reshaped the entire structure of their family and their relationship to the British people and the Commonwealth nations who looked to the monarchy for stability and continuity in an ever-changing world. As the coronation ceremony concluded, the newly crowned King Charles III and Queen Consort Camilla began their procession back down the aisle of Westminster Abbey, the magnificent gold state. Coach awaited outside to carry them through the streets of London, where millions of people had gathered to celebrate this historic moment. Kate gathered her children, preparing them for their own part in the ceremonial procession that would follow the newly crowned monarchs. The royal family filed out of the abbey in strict order of precedence, with William and Kate following closely behind other senior royals. Prince George walked between his parents with newfound seriousness, understanding that his position as second in line to the throne meant he had a special role to play in these formal proceedings. Princess Charlotte held her mother's hand tightly, still processing the magnificent ceremony she had just witnessed, while Prince Louis looked around with wide-eyed wonder at the continued pageantry. Outside Westminster Abbey, the scene was one of controlled celebration. Thousands of spectators pressed against the security barriers, waving flags and cheering as each member of the royal family emerged from the ancient building. The spring sunshine broke through the London clouds at just the right moment, casting a golden glow over the proceedings and creating perfect conditions for the thousands of photographs being taken by professional photographers and spectators alike. Kate helped the children into their designated carriage, ensuring they were properly positioned for the ceremonial procession through central London. The horses stood perfectly still despite the noise and excitement around them, testament to their extensive training for royal occasions. The carriage itself was a work of art, gilded and polished to perfection, with plush velvet seating that made the children feel like they were in a fairy tale. As their carriage began to move, following the route taken by the king and queen consort, the family waved to the enormous crowds lining every street. The response from the public was overwhelming. People had traveled from across Britain and the Commonwealth to witness this historic day, and their enthusiasm was infectious. Kate felt a surge of emotion as she saw families holding up children to get a better view, knowing that these young spectators would remember this day for the rest of their lives. Prince Louis pressed his face to the carriage window, fascinated by the sea of Union Jack flags and the creative costumes worn by many spectators. Some people had painted their faces with royal colors, while others wore elaborate hats or held homemade banners expressing their loyalty to the monarchy. The diversity of the crowd reflected modern Britain, with people of all ages and backgrounds united in celebrating this constitutional milestone. The processional route took them past some of London's most iconic landmarks, each one steeped in royal history. As they passed Buckingham Palace, Kate pointed out to the children the balcony where they would later appear to acknowledge the crowds. The palace itself was decorated with ceremonial banners and flowers, creating a festive atmosphere that complemented the solemnity of the coronation ceremony they had just witnessed. Television crews stationed along the route captured every moment of the procession, broadcasting the images to viewers around the world. Kate was acutely aware that billions of people were watching their family participate in this historic event, and she maintained the dignified composure expected of the Princess of Wales while encouraging her children to wave and smile at the enthusiastic crowds. Princess Charlotte seemed to especially enjoy the procession, naturally charming the spectators with her enthusiastic waves and bright smile. Her pink dress caught the light beautifully as she moved in the carriage, and Kate could see photographers focusing their lenses on her daughter's joyful participation in the ceremony. The image of 3 generations of the royal family celebrating together created powerful symbolism for the monarchy's future. The crowds grew even larger as they approached the Mall, the broad avenue leading directly to Buckingham Palace. Here, tens of thousands of people had gathered, creating a river of celebration that stretched as far as the eye could see. The noise was incredible. Cheers, applause, and singing combined to create a soundtrack of joy that accompanied the royal procession through the heart of London. William pointed out significant buildings and monuments to his children as they passed, continuing their education about British history and their family's role in it. His voice was filled with pride as he explained the significance of various locations, helping them understand how the monarchy connected to the broader story of their nation. Prince George listened intently, already beginning to comprehend the weight of his future responsibilities. As they neared Buckingham Palace, Kate could see the crowds gathering in front of the building, eagerly waiting for the traditional balcony appearance that would conclude the day's public celebrations. The anticipation was palpable, and she felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness about the final public moment of this historic day. The balcony appearance would provide the iconic image that would be remembered and reproduced for generations to come. The carriage finally arrived at Buckingham Palace, where palace staff waited to assist the royal family in alighting from their ceremonial transport. The children were slightly tired from the long day, but remained remarkably composed as they prepared for the final public appearance. Kate smoothed down their clothes and checked that they looked presentable for the photographers who would capture their arrival. Inside the palace, there was a brief respite before the balcony appearance, allowing the family to refresh themselves and prepare for the climactic moment of the coronation day. The newly crowned king and queen consort were also taking a few minutes to compose themselves before facing the massive crowd that had gathered outside. The atmosphere in the palace was one of quiet satisfaction and anticipation for the final celebratory moment. Kate looked out through the palace windows at the enormous crowd gathered below, extending all the way to the Victoria Memorial and beyond. The sight was both thrilling and daunting, representing the hopes and expectations of millions of people who looked to the royal family for stability, continuity, and inspiration. In just a few minutes, they would step onto the famous balcony and officially present the new reign to the British people and the world. The moment had arrived for the traditional balcony appearance, the culminating event that would provide the lasting image of King Charles III's coronation day. Kate stood with her family in the palace corridors, feeling the anticipation build as they prepared to step onto the famous Buckingham Palace balcony. The sound of the massive crowd outside filtered through the ancient walls, creating a low rumble of excitement that seemed to vibrate through the building itself. Prince Louis bounced slightly on his feet, his excitement barely contained after the long day of ceremonies and processions. Kate knelt down to his level, gently reminding him of the importance of the moment they were about to share with the British people and the world. His eyes sparkled with understanding as he nodded seriously, though she could see he was still struggling to fully comprehend the magnitude of what was happening around him. The newly crowned King Charles III and Queen Consort Camilla appeared, still wearing their coronation robes and crowns, looking every inch the monarchs they had become. The weight of the St. Edward's crown was evident in the king's careful movements, but his face radiated the satisfaction of a man who had waited his entire life for this moment. The transformation from heir to sovereign was complete, and it showed in every aspect of his bearing. Palace staff made final adjustments to everyone's appearance, ensuring that each member of the royal family looked perfect for the photographs that would be reproduced around the world for decades to come. Kate's dress was smoothed, the children's hair was tidied, and William's uniform was checked one final time. Every detail mattered when the entire world was watching, and nothing could be left to chance. The famous red-carpeted corridor leading to the balcony stretched ahead of them, lined with palace staff who had worked tirelessly to make this day perfect. Many of these dedicated servants had spent months preparing for the coronation, and Kate could see the pride and emotion in their faces as they watched the royal family prepare for this historic moment. Their dedication and professionalism had helped create a day that would be remembered forever. As they approached the balcony doors, Kate could hear the roar of the crowd more clearly. The sound was unlike anything she had ever experienced. Hundreds of thousands of voices united in celebration, creating a wall of sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of the palace. The enthusiasm was infectious, and she felt her own excitement building as they prepared to acknowledge the extraordinary public response to the coronation. The balcony doors opened, revealing the most spectacular sight any of them had ever witnessed. The mall was completely filled with people as far as the eye could see, a sea of faces, flags, and celebration that stretched from the palace gates to Trafalgar Square and beyond. Television estimated that over 1 million people had gathered in central London alone, with millions more watching from across the United Kingdom and Commonwealth nations. King Charles III stepped onto the balcony first, and the crowd's response was immediate and overwhelming. The cheers, applause, and shouts of "God Save the King" created a thunderous welcome that seemed to roll like a wave across the assembled multitude. He raised his hand in acknowledgement, his face showing both the dignity of his new office and genuine emotion at the public's enthusiastic reception of his coronation. Queen Consort Camilla joined him on the balcony, her own crown glittering in the afternoon sunlight as she waved graciously to the crowd. The sight of the newly crowned monarchs together created a powerful image of stability and continuity that the gathered masses clearly appreciated. Their presence on the balcony officially marked the beginning of the new Carolean age in British history. William and Kate followed with their children, and the crowd's excitement reached new heights as the future of the monarchy appeared before them. Prince George, now clearly second in line to the throne, waved seriously to the crowd, while Princess Charlotte's natural charm shone through as she smiled and waved with obvious delight. The sight of 3 generations of the royal family together on the balcony created a compelling vision of the monarchy's future. Prince Louis initially seemed overwhelmed by the enormous crowd and the deafening noise, staying close to his parents as he took in the incredible scene before him. Kate gently encouraged him to wave, and his shy smile as he tentatively raised his hand to the crowd melted hearts around the world. His innocent wonder at the spectacle captured the magic of the moment perfectly, reminding everyone of the human element within the constitutional pageantry. The family stood together on the balcony, presenting a united front that symbolized both tradition and renewal. The contrast between the ancient institution of monarchy and the young faces of the next generation created a powerful message about continuity and change. Kate felt overwhelmed by the significance of the moment, knowing that this image would become one of the defining pictures of the new reign. The crowd began to sing the national anthem spontaneously, hundreds of thousands of voices joining together in "God Save the King," with newfound meaning after the coronation ceremony. The sound was incredibly moving, creating a moment of unity and patriotism that transcended political differences and brought the nation together in celebration of their constitutional heritage. As the family continued to wave and acknowledge the crowd, Kate noticed the incredible diversity of people who had come to celebrate. Families with young children, Elderly couples who remembered previous royal occasions, tourists from around the world, and people from every walk of life had united in this moment of shared national experience. The monarchy's ability to bring people together was never more evident than in this extraordinary gathering. The traditional RAF flyover began to approach, and the family looked up as historic aircraft and modern jets streaked across the London sky in perfect formation. The sight added another layer of spectacle to an already magnificent day, with the roar of the engines competing with the cheers of the crowd below. Prince Louis clapped his hands in delight at the aerial display, his excitement infectious as cameras captured his joyful response. The balcony appearance continued for several more minutes, allowing the royal family to fully acknowledge the extraordinary public turnout and ensuring that everyone in the vast crowd felt recognized and appreciated. Kate marveled at the patience and dedication of the people who had waited for hours just to catch a glimpse of this historic moment, understanding that their presence was what gave real meaning to the constitutional ceremony they had witnessed. As the balcony appearance drew to its natural conclusion, the royal family took one final look at the extraordinary scene before them. Hundreds of thousands of people stretching as far as the eye could see, united in celebration of this historic moment. Kate felt a deep sense of gratitude for the public's unwavering support and enthusiasm, understanding that this connection between the monarchy and the people was what gave real meaning to all the ceremony and tradition they had experienced throughout the day. The family gradually withdrew from the balcony, but the crowd's cheers continued long after they had disappeared from view. Inside the palace, there was a moment of quiet reflection as the immediate family gathered in one of the staterooms, finally able to process what they had just experienced. The children, who had been remarkably well behaved throughout the long day, now showed signs of tiredness mixed with excitement as the adrenaline of the historic events began to wear off. King Charles III, still wearing his coronation robes, embraced each of his grandchildren, thanking them for their perfect behavior during such an important day. His voice was filled with emotion as he spoke about how proud he was to have had his family beside him during his coronation, understanding that their presence had made the day even more meaningful. The crown still rested on his head, but in this private moment, he was simply a grandfather, celebrating with his beloved family. William and Kate exchanged a look of mutual accomplishment, knowing that they had successfully navigated one of the most significant public events of their lives. Their children had represented the monarchy with dignity and charm, creating positive memories for millions of people around the world. The photographs and video footage from the day would become part of the historical record, preserving these precious moments for future generations to study and remember. Palace staff began the process of carefully removing and storing the ceremonial regalia, each piece requiring special handling and security protocols. The St. Edward's crown would return to the Tower of London, where it would be displayed for visitors to admire while awaiting the next coronation, which might not occur for decades to come. The children watched with fascination as these priceless symbols of monarchy were carefully packed away, understanding that they had witnessed something truly special. The evening brought private celebrations within the palace walls, where the extended royal family and close friends gathered to toast the new reign. The atmosphere was more relaxed than the formal ceremonies of the day, allowing everyone to reflect on the historical significance of what they had witnessed and participated in. Kate helped the children change out of their formal attire, listening to their excited chatter about their favorite moments from the coronation ceremony. Prince George spoke thoughtfully about the weight of the crown and how his grandfather had looked so serious during the most sacred parts of the ceremony. His young mind was already beginning to grasp the responsibilities that came with kingship, understanding that the fun and pageantry were balanced by serious duties and obligations. Kate answered his questions carefully, helping him process the complex emotions and ideas that the day had generated. Princess Charlotte was most excited about the beautiful dresses, the music, and the enormous crowd that had gathered to celebrate. Her natural love of ceremony and spectacle had been perfectly satisfied by the day's events, and she recreated parts of the procession for her younger brother, showing him how to wave properly and maintain royal posture. Her joy was infectious, reminding everyone of the wonder and magic that such occasions could create. Prince Louis, despite his tiredness, continued to talk about the horses, the carriages, and especially the flying airplanes that had streaked across the sky during the balcony appearance. His innocent excitement captured the pure joy of the day, unmarred by the weight of protocol and constitutional significance that affected the adult participants. His questions about when they could do it all again made everyone laugh, understanding that for him, it had been the most elaborate and exciting party imaginable. As the evening progressed, Kate found herself reflecting on how this coronation had marked not just the beginning of her father-in-law's reign, but a significant milestone in her own royal journey. She was now the Princess of Wales in a very different context, married to the direct heir to the throne, with children who had moved one step closer to their own future roles in the monarchy. The responsibilities ahead seemed both daunting and inspiring. The media coverage of the coronation continued throughout the evening and into the following days, with newspapers and television programs around the world analyzing every moment of the ceremony and the family's participation. The images of the children behaving so beautifully, Kate's elegant presence, and William's dignified support of his father were praised universally, reinforcing the positive public perception of the monarchy's future. In the weeks that followed, the coronation would be remembered as a perfect blend of ancient tradition and modern accessibility. The ceremony had honored centuries of constitutional heritage, while embracing the diversity and values of contemporary Britain. The royal family's participation had shown them to be both dignified representatives of institutional continuity and relatable human beings sharing in a moment of national celebration. Kate understood that this coronation day would forever be remembered as a pivotal moment in their family's history. The photographs, the memories, and the significance of witnessing the transition from one reign to another would become treasured family stories to be shared with future generations. Their children had not just attended a coronation, they had participated in the living history of their nation and their own destiny. The day had been exhausting, emotional, and absolutely perfect. As Kate finally settled the children into their beds that evening, she knew that they had all been part of something truly special. The coronation of King Charles III had not just created a new monarch, it had strengthened the bonds between the royal family and the British people, ensuring that the monarchy would continue to evolve and thrive in the modern world. The children drifted off to sleep with their heads full of crowns, carriages, and cheering crowds, their dreams likely filled with the magical pageantry they had experienced. Kate stood in their doorway for a moment, watching them sleep peacefully after their day in the spotlight, grateful that they had handled themselves with such grace and dignity. She knew that this day would be referenced throughout their lives as they grew into their royal roles. William found her there, and together they reflected on the extraordinary day they had shared as a family. The transition of power had been accomplished with the perfect blend of ancient ceremony and modern relevance, and their children had played their part beautifully. As they looked toward the future, they understood that the new Carolean age had begun with hope, celebration, and the promise of continued service to the British people and the Commonwealth nations who looked to them for leadership and inspiration. The coronation of King Charles III, with Prince William, Kate, and their children in splendor at Westminster Abbey, had become a day that would be remembered and celebrated for generations to come. It marked not just the crowning of a king, but the successful continuation of a 1,000-year-old institution that had proven once again its ability to adapt, inspire, and unite people from all walks of life in shared celebration of their constitutional heritage and national identity.